o'clock it is. So today is April 29th. No, 27th. Scared everyone. They're like, oh no, I'm supposed to be somewhere else. April 27th Planning Board meeting. It's actually a study session tonight. All right.
Let's roll. Chair Elrod.
Here.
Vice Chair Rednicki. Here. Board Member Bolt.
Present.
Board Member Graham.
Accounted for.
Board Member Moore.
Here.
Board Member Miles. Here. Board Member Samuelson.
Here.
And Board Member Corbett. I won't call you Alt 1, I'm sorry.
Alt 1 here.
Thank you. And Board Member Kruger. It's not available.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Alt 1.
All right.
Got a quorum.
Excellent. So looks like we're going to have some updates on the community plans. And
Yep. Sure, I thought I'd give you an update on some of the things we're working on. Wow, that's loud. From staff, and then talk a little bit more in depth about the neighborhood plans, show you the few comments we've got, and maybe talk about if you want to engage citizens another way. We can talk about that, and then also give you an update on some of our code amendments. And then a couple of weeks ago, I gave a presentation with economic development to a number of landowners and developers in Littleton, so I thought I would show that to you at the end. So I guess Littleton corridor. So the city went out for an RFP for a number of things. There was a desire by the city council to get a more detailed streetscape plan for downtown. So that's Main Street and Alamo, and that would be basically what to use the sidewalk. And you're probably familiar with the issues we've had with people providing their goods out on the street. We did a wayfinding signage system so that the city council thought, well, let's look at the whole public realm of Main Street in our downtown. So that's part of it. And then on top of that was added the Littleton corridor study. So as you know, one of the activity areas called out in the comprehensive plan is the Littleton Boulevard land use study, basically from the railroad all the way to Broadway Road. And then the second part of that is, again, a detailed streetscape of what that roadway ought to look like. So we had about 7 consultants that put in. There was a consultant team or a staff team to review those RFPs, including a couple of council members. So Councilmember Brinkman and Councilmember Valdez was also involved. We've got it down to a finalist, and we're actually meeting with them tomorrow to kind of work on their budget a little bit. So hopefully we'll be starting that very soon. On the station area plans, what I meant...
What's the expected timeline that will take? And when can we expect to see something?
They were talking about, I believe in this particular one, a 6-month process. I think we will hopefully have them under contract next month, and that's probably when the beginning will start. So
in October we can expect a presentation, or...
Oh, no, all the way through. All the way through. Believe me, we put in there that not only, but there's potential historic structures, so they have to touch base with the planning board all the way through the process, and historic preservation as well. So when I've got a timeline of how that is going to occur, I'll definitely share that with you.
So on the project plan here that you shared with us, I think a couple of sessions back, so the first touch base was Q2. It doesn't say what we would look at or what the expectation is, but Q2 is the first touch base here.
Yeah, which we're just starting, right? We started in April. So I think what I would see is really the first touch base with you is to talk about the scope of the project, who the stakeholders are, their process for public outreach, and get your feedback on those three things as kind of a first step. So if they're missing a section of the community that should be involved, you guys are the ones to kind of point them in the right direction. And their whole approach to how they're going to take on that project. So I would think early and often you will be seeing these consultants.
Wouldn't the scope already have been defined by the RFP that went out? Okay, so scope's already defined.
Yeah, and basically we copied the wording right out of the citywide plan. So we talk about this as being an important activity area, and we need to address land use, a number of different things for Littleton Boulevard. So I don't know it exactly, but I drew from the comprehensive plan and then also the downtown plan, right? Because it's almost an extension of the downtown detailed small area plan. So
then what we could expect, so coming back to what could we expect that first touch base, it's them, whoever we decided on, them coming back to us and saying, here is our approach to addressing the scope of this project.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn, is the firm that you... Oh, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead. Well, who are the they? Can
are
you
they?
tell us who the they are?
Well, we're not on a contract yet.
Okay.
So
Never mind.
I can't, but I think the front runners are somebody you'd probably be familiar with. So I will tease you with that.
That's quite a hint. Okay.
And they really did the best job. They really reached out and figured out what are the important sections of Littleton Boulevard versus just looking at a corridor that people drive down, but there's unique sections of Littleton Boulevard, and I think everybody on the team thought, hey, they kind of get it. It's a little bit, it's an area that needs help, but there are unique sections of Littleton Boulevard that we can capitalize on.
Did you notice whether those sections were aligned to what we were calling activity areas? Because we had little circles in certain areas too.
Did we actually on Littleton Boulevard?
Maybe not. Maybe it was on the peripherals of it, the edges. Yep.
Yeah.
But 30% of it is residential on the south side, and that's not going anywhere. So, I mean, you can pick and choose your battles there up and down the street, but you don't have to do it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they also had a member of their team who's does public outreach in a lot of different ways. So they talk about some more, I'm trying to think of the term, but more effective ways of reaching people that maybe are walking back and forth and not necessarily the normal cast of characters that would get involved in the plan. So I think that was pretty exciting too.
Brian, did you have something?
Just my question was, were they local? So along the lines of what Mark said.
They're in the Denver area, if you consider that local. Yeah. So they're close. They had a lot of good local experience.
Good.
And hopefully your next meeting I'll be able to tell you who they are and when they're going to come talk to you. So
You also said, I think I heard you say it's a 6-month project. Did I hear that?
They were projecting a 6-month project.
And so at the end of the 6 months, we would have a plan that would be handed over to us, although we're part of the process throughout, as are the citizens throughout. So do you foresee it being a completed document that we can actually put forward to approve or recommend to council?
Yeah, that's the goal.
Okay, good.
Hopefully everybody's on board and we have, you'd have to have your formal public hearings, but hopefully we have people engaged all the way through, so we're not waiting to the last minute to have a public hearing. And
Wow, that's great.
And then, then you make a recommendation to City Council and City Council adopts. And we've got that chapter wrapped up, hopefully. Then next, station area plans. So that, as you know, we're getting federal funds through RTD. At the last council meeting, they approved the first step, which is the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Littleton and RTD of there's a bunch of federal standards that have to be met in letting that contract. So that's been done. We have to get RTD's signature, but that's kind of an obligatory step at this point. And then we'll put that RFP out on the street. And then I would like to include some board members in the selection of that. That's going to be a major study. So that includes the mineral station and the downtown station. All told, we have to match, but it's about $250,000 all told contract for that. So that includes a market analysis of appropriate land uses, the whole land use portion, the urban design portion. In downtown, we actually talked about a parking model. We want them to look at the parking. I've heard parking's an issue. I'm not really sure, but that's also a very important part of the downtown study. So that funding is staggered, but I'm hoping to get one consultant firm that can do the basic research on both, and therefore we can save some money in the long run. But the mineral station will probably be the first to kick off, and followed shortly thereafter by the downtown study. So
since you haven't signed the agreement, you haven't put out the request for proposals yet?
No, we have not.
Okay.
No.
Is also any way to sneak in between the stations up and down Santa Fe, or is it strictly just the transit stations?
Right. Well, that's my goal. I think that big of a contract, and they're really a couple miles apart, that potentially we could actually tie in the Santa Fe corridor plan and update that with those as well. They're very related, and if you're studying a market area 5 miles out, you're covering Santa Fe corridor, and you're identifying uses that are appropriate there, that I think potentially we could knock off all three.
Why do you say 5? So is 5 miles out a standard?
Typically, yes. They'll go 2 and 5 miles, typically, when they do a market study, to kind of capture what are the regional uses, what are the local uses.
All right, good.
Glenn, sorry, new to the process, but could that be transit-oriented development at Mineral as well?
Yes. Right.
On what land? What?
Oh, well, on the RTD land, primarily.
Okay.
We actually did an Urban Land Institute quick study, a one-day study.
2 of them.
2 of them, Mark reminds me, you're right, on the ULI study. So they also went as far as, Aspen Grove's 20 years old. What does it look like if it redevelops?
Really?
Yeah, it's 20 years old.
20-year lifespan, huh?
Yeah, which is kind of getting to that point where shopping centers go through a tough time. And look, there's vacant spaces there.
It's
It's
not
15.
20 years old.
Is
It's
it?
only 15.
It's only 15.
Yeah, because
That's American.
I've only been here 18 or 19 years, and it was built after I moved
It's like
here.
2000.
I think it's about 15 too.
It's still a teenager. I take it back.
Teenagers embellish things.
They do.
But you specified this will only be on RTD land, but it...
No.
No, okay.
No, and then also we have the Enzer site to the south.
Okay.
So
it is that
it does
5-mile
include that. So it
radius
goes-
that we can...
I think we went all the way to the north end of Aspen Grove, all the way to the south end of the Enzer site in the scope of it. And then you have quite a wide river corridor, so there's really nothing that's going to directly affect the development around the mineral station.
So for the Littleton corridor studies that you pulled the requirements essentially out of the citywide plan. As you're building the RFP for the mineral station and the downtown station, what are you using to develop that RFP?
We use the grant requirements provided by RTD and Dr. Cog, really. So they want to, and it's no surprise, they want to have cities adopt plans that make appropriate development adjacent to light rail stations work. So that's really what it's about, to increase ridership is part of it, and create those areas where people live, work, play, and ride the light rail. So that was a big part of it. Then we were able to add, and they also require the market study and a marketing study. So how do you market this area for appropriate development? And then we added things in downtown as far as the parking. So that's actually defined in our IGA. So I can provide that to you. I don't have it right here.
Aspen Grove is 2001.
2001, so it's 14 years.
14, a new teenager.
I stand corrected. I thought it was 20. I'm sorry.
They want it to be. So the reason why I was asking that question, Glenn, is because, so given the criteria of the grant, and it's to increase ridership and all of that, we also know that in the downtown area and even in the mineral area, there's certain elements that we want to maintain, the historic and small town feel downtown, as well as some of the views that we enjoy from the south corridor. Are we still able to incorporate some of those goals of our citywide plan into those areas? So this study is a little bit different, I think, than the Littleton corridor study, where it's going to inform, but it won't be the end plan, correct?
No, I think we actually defined it as a chapter.
Oh, it is?
So it would be a chapter just like the Littleton corridor study.
So we'll just have to make sure those other elements
Yeah.
that are important to us are incorporated in there.
Absolutely. It's got to build on your citywide plan. And in the downtown, it's a little bit complicated because you have the downtown neighborhood plan too. So they're going to overlap to a certain degree.
We just have to make
We
sure.
have to make sure they jive. Yeah.
Well, editorial comment, I hope this will be our third study of the area. One could hope that something finally happens there. Or we just fill up the library with studies.
Yes, hopefully, anybody would tell you, you don't want a plan that sits on the shelf, you want to be able to use it. So I'm hoping that with looking at amending the zoning code, that this would give us guidance as far as what would be appropriate changes around the light rail stations.
Amending the zoning codes, so this would inform some of that work that's done?
Oh, I would hope so, yeah. Yeah,
Even though that scope of the project hasn't been funded yet?
that's right. That's right. Another good reason why we didn't jump to conclusions, because we would like to get direction from these two studies.
Okay.
Yeah,
A lot of pieces and parts that need to come together, huh?
Yeah, your policy, your comprehensive plan is implemented primarily through your zoning. So you want to make sure you create your policy of what you want the community to be, and then you have to get into the nuts and bolts of your zoning code of how to make that happen. And it's not just the zoning code, it's also the capital improvement plan. So if you want to widen sidewalks downtown, and that's a top priority because you want people to walk to the light rail station, that's got to move up in the capital improvement in the budgeting program. So what I thought I'd do is show you what we've had up on our interactive website, which is Open Littleton. I don't know if you've seen this before, but this is where we send out various questions to the community and get their reaction and their feedback. So as you can see, we've got 3 questions. Comment on our neighborhood plan. Reynolds Landing, they're talking about improvements there over by the Breckenridge Brewery, and accessory dwelling units, which I'll show you a little later on in our agenda. So here's the question that we posed to the community to take a look at it and tell us what you think. In here is the document that you worked on, the introduction, and then your edits is all right here. So hopefully somebody pulls these up and takes a look at it. Jeepers, it's not going to open for 5 minutes. So it was a big document.
Magic tricks?
Well, you know what it looks like.
So that could be a deterrent to getting feedback?
Yeah.
Doesn't feedback document too long.
I have opened it before. I have not had this problem.
It's not that huge of a file.
No, not really.
Document.
Okay. So here's the feedback we've received. It's really only 3 statements, but they're fairly detailed. So this has to do with goal number 2 about transportation, and there's concerns with the length of Lake Avenue and the amount of traffic, people driving too fast, that perhaps we should address something about traffic on Lake in the south neighborhood. There's some questions about land use policy 3. I'd like to object to the potential placement of industrial, and if you remember this area, this includes South Park. So it does include potentially some industrial uses on the south side of Mineral, and I think we talked about that. Should we bifurcate the 2? Should we keep the residential separate from the commercial part? So I think somebody's reading it as, oh my God, you're going to put industrial in my neighborhood, because they see it as their potential neighborhood. They could put up with commercial, as there's already some of that, but I think industrial use would be too close to Southbridge to neighborhood southern boundary. So I don't know, maybe we think about that, what's appropriate buffer between the 2, or maybe we... One of my ideas is something that council threw out is you should do a Mineral Avenue corridor and a county line corridor. Perhaps we take the industrial part of South Park out and put it into that corridor, because I think it is potentially scary to somebody that's in a residential neighborhood. And then there's also, in fact, it's in several of the neighborhood plans, land use policy 4. This sounds to me like an attempt to increase housing density development. I think there was something about providing a mix of housing or housing for all populations or something, and simply replace it with the word proceeds. So instead of provides a mix of housing types, I'm not really sure where that's...
Are these comments just about the South Neighborhood Plan from 1980?
This one is.
Yeah. We didn't do anything to the South Neighborhood.
Right.
And that was the point. I mean, all of these comments are suggestions, which we knew we would have. And again, our intent here is it's just a cleanup. So we have to be careful about going in and changing anything. Mm-hmm. And again, we'll take these comments and we'll table them for now until we do update the plans. So these are all good. But again, the intent was the cleanup. So I think there was a comment that said that it was removed, the policy was removed because it was outdated. Here it goes. We're down. So that was, go down, the first statement. So transportation policy 2, old policy, I'm glad to see this is to be removed. So, correct. So that's the kind of comments that we want. Not that we don't want the other ones, but this is the one that's saying, yes, what you're doing to clean up is accurate, and I support that cleanup effort that you've made. That's what that one's saying. Versus the second one, which is beginning to say, here are the things that I want you to change, but we're not ready to change the plans other than, again, just redundancy and things like that.
And then the Stern Park neighborhood has something about prohibiting commercial zoning going beyond what's there existing. But I'd be curious what some areas slightly off of Littleton Boulevard are zoned. It seems having some flexibility in the statement might be a better idea depending on what the current zoning looks like. So I think what isn't automatically, people don't automatically know how deep that commercial zoning is off of Littleton Boulevard. So good comment. But there's only 3 comments, and perhaps that's what we expected, because it really was a cleanup. And I don't know if we want to go the step further of what's missed. I know it was the board's feeling that we kind of stick with the status quo and we make it whole and we fix it, and then we adopt it as is. But I don't know. I guess that's part of my question. I just wonder.
Why do we only see 3 comments, but there's a number 53 up there in the little green bubble?
Yeah, so 53 people looked at it,
Oh, okay.
but only 3 people commented. And then,
What's the extent of look? They don't have to have downloaded the document, right? They just saw the...
I don't know whether, or it's just they opened the question up. I think that's really all it is they open the question up.
Is this our extent of outreach?
Well, that's, the other thing we've done is we've sent it out, we've provided a link to this through our Nextdoor. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is through our neighborhood resource coordinator, we're creating kind of I hate to use the word Congress, but that's what we've called it, a neighborhood Congress, people interested in the neighborhood. And with the idea that we can kind of bring up issues to the community, to this group, and get their feedback, whether it's code enforcement, public works issues, police issues, potential long-range planning issues, and use that group to kind of vet comments through them. The other thing is this summer we're doing the Meat Creek Neat. We're starting out in Trailmark in David's.
You got rained out at the end of last year.
Yep, I know. We took a lot of heat for that. I just want to show you a couple other things. So if we had a bunch of comments, what you can do is you can kind of get an idea of where your comments are coming from. So here's Littleton. In this District 3, we only had 1 statement. Of course, we only have 3 statements here. We got 1 statement from District 2 and 1 statement from District 1. So kind of included 3/4 of the community anyhow, and nothing from David's area. You could log in.
I think people feel disconnected in that area.
Well, and I think we pointed out we need a whole new plan there. And actually somebody called and asked about that. When I look at this, it doesn't really, or they looked at the fact that it was 1981. Well, how could it include Trailmark? Because we weren't in existence in 1981. Well, it was added in like 2004, I believe. But if you look at it, it's really the zoning document from the PD that was approved. It's not really a neighborhood plan. So my idea is we're going to be out there May 19th. Is there some tools that perhaps we can get people thinking about their community? And I'll show you what we did last year.
I think that whatever you've got at Trailmark, it has no citizen involvement because there was nobody living there at the time. So
Right.
This will be a great opportunity. It's full up, and hopefully we'll get some good participation.
So we have to go back to our plan. So if we're going to ask for input, then we better be ready to do something with that input. And Trailmark, I don't know how far down the road that one was as far as developing a plan for that.
I don't remember what we gave it as a priority.
Well, we can definitely record the sentiment that we get and save it for when we work on it. It's not like it'll get lost, right?
Right.
If it's recorded.
And that statement's for anyone, right? So whether it's Trailmark or anywhere else?
Yeah.
If you're going to get the input, then be ready to do something with it. And so let's see, Trailmark is a medium, so maybe that'll happen.
Yep. Well,
So I just don't want to set unrealistic expectations, because then I think that will create more frustration. You're asking for my opinion, but then it'll be 5 years before you do something with it, and 5 years from now it might be a different situation.
that's a good point.
So I think just something to think through.
Anybody else? I mean,
Don't cancel it again.
No, I'm not saying to cancel it, it's just
It's
what,
starting to look like rain. I don't know, David. That's-
The funny thing is, it didn't even rain there that day.
Yeah, the forecast was brutal, I know, and then it passed.
I was just going to say, I mean, some of the comments pertain to what we were actually asking, which is, what do you think of the proposed changes? But some of them went off the fairway, and we're talking about zoning, or I don't like commercial uses, or I'm not sure what the zoning is, and that's not really what we were asking. So interesting comments, to be noted, but really we ought to, if we're going to be looking at this, we ought to dial in on, those points that were made that were consistent with what we were asking.
Right, okay. Well, and what I was thinking, one thing that we did with the citywide plan that was pretty broad was, what do I love about Littleton? We could do something that simple just to kind of get at least what people think are the major amenities, I guess, of Trailmark. And so I actually brought this just to remind you. Something as simple as this, where people just filled out something and stuck it on there.
Is that Heritage?
It could be, I don't know. I was thinking this is what do you love about Littleton. It's got the old logo, so I guess it goes back to that citywide plan.
very positive, I don't think it's going to change.
That's the greatest place.
I turned away from the microphone. I'll just say this again. So those are all great exercises. You just have to be able to do something with them. Otherwise, that's nice.
Yep. Okay. We'll smile and shake hands and meet people and talk to them.
And maybe we can come up with an agenda. When is it going to be?
May 19th.
Oh, it's pretty close.
So you have another meeting on May 11th, basically. So if something comes to you, I don't mind.
I mean, David, you might have some thoughts of and it may not be a topic that's necessarily a community development topic or issue. It might be more of a city issue, but if you have some thoughts of what their pain points are, or...
Yeah, have you been to one of these eat and greets or whatever? Meet and eats?
They're pretty well attended usually. And the nice thing about Trailmark is everybody from Trailmark will be there. Whereas if we meet here in Littleton, you get everybody
From wherever,
Yeah, but I don't think anybody will necessarily go to Trailmark that doesn't live there.
Maybe a few.
I went to one 2 years ago. It was very well attended. Very nice.
I went to the one in Powell Middle School that got microburst and ended abruptly. So
Yeah.
We always have weather issues when you put that tent up.
It does attract the rain. Yeah.
So maybe these become an opportunity to share information with the neighborhoods as opposed to, not that we don't want to gather information, but again, we need to be careful about what information we're gathering and what we're going to do with it. So it is an opportunity to share, here's what's going on in the city, here's how maybe it affects you, and I think it could be a much broader, a broader range of topics that you're sharing, from public works to community development to economic development. That in essence, maybe something that is a gap for Trailmark is they don't feel like they're part of the Littleton community because they're so far removed. So geographically so far removed, so how can you share some of that information that they really feel that they're part of the community?
Right. Yeah, I was actually thinking, and, I guess you have to think about whether you want to ask that question, but how could you feel more connected to City of Littleton?
Yeah.
Because that was kind of the theme that I got from folks from our first meeting out there.
I think one of the issues with the area as a whole is Littleton covers a wide range of areas that are unincorporated, Jefferson or Adams or Douglas even, and we might even have the opposite problem at Trailmark where, a lot of people are confused that they're not really in the city of Littleton. Well, in Trailmark, I think, there might be people that are confused that they don't think they're in Littleton when they actually are. Because when I tell people, just in general, that I'm in the city, most of them find that hard to believe.
Yep.
That it's so, that even that you could have an island instead of, because a lot of municipalities, you have to have basically a flag where there has to be a connecting corridor. We don't really even have that.
Didn't we used the lake, didn't we?
I'm not sure how we did that.
That's how we did it.
So,
Huh. So
But I think those are good, again, that's a good subject to, tell the history. How did, Trailmark become a part of Littleton? So as much as,
Or lack thereof.
and I think it's just great information. It grounds them of, why I'm here, why does this make sense or not make sense, but at least, share some of that history and facts. I think that'd be a great forum for that.
a monumentation or some signage that Littleton, as you drive in, might.
There is a sign that says City of Littleton, but it's not very big, it's, a sign about this
Maybe
big
something a little,
at the entrance.
that might be of help to the people that are
Some
out there.
branding.
Yep.
Wayfinding all the way.
All the way out there. Yeah, like Walt Drug.
Keep going.
Stop for lunch.
Stop for gas, yeah. Stop for
Like you're going to somebody's wedding.
See the
or something,
dinosaur.
park.
One of the things we did when we were still on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats is we created this matrix. The last time we did the meet and greet, and we used Peak Democracy helped us with this. And we created a number of issues down one side, and then we asked people, do you feel this is a strength of your neighborhood, a weakness, an opportunity, or a threat? People signed up, so they had to give us their email address, and then they got 4 dots with QR codes on them. So they put the dots, and they talked to people about various issues, kind of started a conversation with their neighbors. Then we took a picture of that and sent it to our consultants, and the QR code would help them identify them geographically. So if somebody said traffic is a real issue, it's a threat in our neighborhood, we could actually kind of see where those clusters were. So, maybe from just a data gathering, maybe it wasn't that detailed, but it was kind of nice just to get people thinking about what makes up their community and, start a conversation with their neighbor or debate something. So even something along that lines, I think, just helps people to start think about issues. The same way with the sticky note deal. And maybe it's, how could you feel better connected to Littleton? I don't know.
Where was that one created?
I'm not sure which exact neighborhood this was for, but was it last year or the year before? We did the same thing where we had 4 different meetings out in the community. And it's outside, we put up a tent and we bring pizzas and water and ice cream sandwiches and, a bouncy castle. And so everybody from the neighborhood turns out.
Swag,
And
good swag.
some swag, lots of swag, yeah. All the different departments kind of set up, we bring the fire truck out and the McGruff, all those things, and talk about Littleton government, basically. And so that's where we set this up and just engage people. And we did it in each neighborhood. We'd have one in Trailmark, but we canceled it.
Enough interest.
Okay, so it will be beyond community development.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's way beyond community development. It's hard to compete with fire, so that's what I try and keeps me up at night.
It's the same document that exists in the citywide plan.
Same exact one, there you go.
I've seen that before.
For a while.
You might have seen it somewhere.
It's famous. Yeah, and actually, we went through all those and created themes, and so it was
Do you
effective.
need anything, so May 19th, so do you already have a schedule for all the neighborhoods?
Yes, we do. The only one I know is May 19th, but they're, let's see, I can find it. 'Cause 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 it. 'C
And so what do you need from us, Glenn? So you're trying to come up with what's going to be our standard at all of them, not necessarily just what we want to do for Trailmark.
Well, that would be nice. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing. But I hear what you're saying about the neighborhood plans, and we said we were going to just fix the one we got. It's just quite an opportunity to be out there, and maybe it's a bigger thing than what do you like about your neighborhood plan. So keep that in the back of your mind, because we've got a summer tour, basically.
So can you send us what was done last year? Like, what were the topics that you hit on or the activities that you did, so we can, say, okay, let's build off of that because it was effective, or no need to do that again because we did it last year, and...
Yeah, well, this was it. That's really what we did
This is
last
what we
time.
did, the
Yeah.
SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then give me your ideas.
Yeah, and what I was thinking is, maybe we drop the SWOT and we list a number of issues and, tell us the 3 things that need improvement in your neighborhood. And people have 3 or 4 dots and they stack them up on whatever that issue is.
So you didn't have an opportunity to present anything. It was just people come by, you talk to them, right? Did you have an opportunity to present at any of them or not?
Not more than this, right.
Oh, okay.
So people would come by and say, well, yeah, the traffic on Lake Avenue is really bad. Or they'd come up or ask something about police, and, hopefully we'd have a police officer around who would kind of answer a question.
So if I'm picturing this right, as I remember the various tables for different subjects, right? The Public Works, does planning have a table or something, and you're standing behind there with 1 or 2 of us and hawking our wares, or what?
Community development.
We have a community development area, so we have the code enforcement people who are giving away swag and talking about code issues. We had neighborhood resources there talking about mediation, our mediation program, and some of the neighborhood outreach stuff that they do. Like we talked about building codes. People aren't particularly turned on by that, other than you, Mark, I know.
That's right, love it. Yeah.
Don't we have an app? Isn't there some app that, oh no, I think that's for fixing the trails, that you take a picture of a weed and send it in and say...
Oh, we have Click and Fix. Yeah.
Not that.
Click and Fix it. Yeah. So people see a code issue.
Is that part of community development?
Yeah.
So that's the way, so here's what I'm thinking. So what we're trying to do is get them to your table, because you're competing with the fire truck and the pizza and the rough. And so what are some techie things that you could do to get them to come to your area? Because then once they get to our booth, then you could throw this stuff.
Actually, you could do this online. The problem is we don't necessarily have Wi-Fi where we are. But we talked about it. There's a way you could somebody could vote online, and then it would project it. You could project it on the screen.
Present it in a way that's, marketing, like, come have a say, so they don't know it's planning and zoning, trick them. Like, come have a say in your city, I don't know.
Planning?
Yeah, and we can't say that word. But, and I think you guys all need to wear shorts, show those legs off. I think that'd get them there.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
What's that?
It's
gonna be a little
need to
too
wear
early.
shorts, show those legs off. That'll get them.
Yeah, what would be fun is,
Or a dunk tank or something. I don't know. We'll put Mark
Okay,
up
thank you
there.
for volunteering.
Dunk tank.
I'm ready.
you're volunteering?
Yeah.
So if we could have something interactive, like design your neighborhood, put up houses and trees and trails, and so something interactive, then you'd get people to come, and just by what they're doing gives us an indication of what they would desire. Mm-hmm. So if you could come up with something really cool like that.
Yeah.
Besides crayons and a big whiteboard and...
Yeah, I know, that's boring. Jenny Ranville actually, so she laid out butcher paper, right? And she asked kids to draw, their ideal city, which was interesting.
Are we going to get our board member that lives in the neighborhood to join you?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, David's been at several.
For what?
Sorry?
Join them for what?
Neighborhood
Oh,
planning.
yeah, I was at all of them last year. Free pizza, you kidding me?
No. I mean, you're working behind the table.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's, you kind of circulate around. It was it's kind of an open environment with those things.
So let's see, I don't see where it's all
My
laid
name
out.
tag on
Do you have a neighborhood association, a strong neighborhood association? Yearly meetings?
it. We have an HOA, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, Glenn,
Yes.
that you're going to do,
You're going to do,
no, you're going to do the same thing you did last year unless we give
Unless
you
you
some
tell me
advice,
something better.
unless we give you some other great ideas that can actually be executed on.
great ideas. Yeah.
So if you guys have other ideas that can I mean, I don't think you have to worry about let Glenn worry about that, but think through that as well.
I don't know if we could do it for every neighborhood, but, there's this City of Littleton book that has all these historical pictures. Maybe we could do a board that has a historical picture of each neighborhood and then what it looks like now. People would just come over because they like to look at that stuff, and then you can start talking about how Littleton's changed and how we're working on the comp plan.
Good idea.
I don't know, something visual.
Karina had a bunch of nice pictures. Didn't you have pictures from your neighborhood?
I did. Do I still have them?
No.
I sent them on to Dennis. I'm sure Dennis has them.
We probably have them of that one particular neighborhood.
It just would be neat to see what
And that's
used to
what
be there and
ours
what's
was.
there now.
It was all farmland.
Yeah.
And you could see the
It
mountains.
might all look the
and-
same, I don't know. Might all just be
They
farmhouse.
look very different. I know yours did, because it was like the first house, one of
It
the
looked
first.
like Highlands Ranch 20 years ago,
Right, right.
30. I wasn't here that long.
Here's the schedule. So May 19th, Trail Mark, 23rd of June, Promise Park. Another area where we said we need a new neighborhood plan, and I think that has a higher priority.
Yeah, so that one, we may want to
Maybe we want to think
really
about that
get
one.
input.
Right.
June 23rd, it's right around the corner.
Then July 21st, Powell Middle School, and August 25th, Kettering Park.
So, can't quite read, August 25th or
25th.
25th.
That's on the city's website.
This is the city's website, yep. Meet, greet, and eat.
And you would like at least the representative from, the planning board representative from the neighborhood to be there, but of course, it's open to all of us.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love you all to be there. And we'll think about and present some other ideas at your next.
So are any of us from the Progress Park neighborhood?
Don't believe so.
Where's Promise Park? Is Promise Park in Progress Park?
No.
No?
This is Broadway and Littleton.
North of Littleton Boulevard.
Well, that is
But it's
Progress Park.
Progress Park.
That's Progress Park.
I don't know where the promise came from.
Northwest corner of Broadway and Littleton. I was curious, too.
Northwest Broadway and Littleton. Yeah, that's Progress Park.
Northwest.
Bellevue.
Saying Broadway, you're thinking Bellevue,
Progress Park is on Bellevue.
Broadway.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, yeah, further to the west.
It's Promise Park. I thought it was because the park out there is the Progress Park.
Promise, that's Promise Park.
It's a typo.
No, Promise Park is just north of Littleton Boulevard.
I mean, that's the location, right? But it's in the Progress Park neighborhood.
You are
So-
correct. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
And Powell Middle School and Kittering, so Kittering would be in your neighborhood, right?
Yep. That's
Kittering Park.
That's our park.
What neighborhood is Powell in? That's kind of out of, isn't that
What
Centennial?
does that one fall into?
Okay. Is it just on
By Oak Brook, is that where it is?
Yeah, Oak Brook. yeah.
South neighborhood.
right behind Littleton? I see.
That, so what neighborhood does that one fall into? The last one, the Powell Park, Powell.
It could be south.
Oh, do you think it's south? think so, yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah. And is that you? You would know then. All right,
Got there just in time
everyone's
to
got
see
their
it.
assignments then.
Where's that arrow
All right.
But there's nothing west of Santa Fe.
There was a,
The trail mark.
Okay,
Reynolds Landing?
how did that go?
I haven't heard anything. I think it was pretty well attended.
what was the question?
The Reynolds Landing meeting?
Did you go?
Oh, yeah, I missed that one.
No, but it looks like they got a lot of comments. Here.
Yeah. I was just going back to that.
I like the new cloud, the word cloud, that's a new functionality, isn't
Right,
it?
yeah, I
That's
just
really cool.
turned that off. That was, yeah, from 3 comments, we already had a word cloud going. So, let's look. Let's see what their word cloud looks like.
So so we didn't close this then, on this neighborhood plan, how long will we keep it up there? And then what,
Right,
I think you're asking us essentially the same question, so
yeah.
we're going to keep it up there for how long, did we originally say?
Well, I think we said 60 days. We're at least 30 now. Its comments have kind of dried up. That's why I don't know if you want to ask a leading question, perhaps to refresh it. And it could be something as simple as what was missed. Or is there something
And
that
when
was
can we logistically and realistically get this in front of council for the first, for adopting it as a cleanup of the neighborhood? So when on the calendar would be a good time to get in front of council?
It's really up to you. Yeah, it's really a matter of drafting a resolution, and I think we want to get further comment from a few other sources, though. So, and I'm thinking primarily from this neighborhood congress, which should be in the next month or so.
So they will come together. So where are they at as far as, have they identified the individuals?
We've asked for volunteers, make application. We have about 25, and I think that's probably about the appropriate number.
Okay.
Yep.
So should we set a target by the end of summer?
Oh, sure. Or in the middle somewhere.
Midsummer, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get it over with.
I think midsummer might be more
Better.
realistic, more better, yeah.
And we'll get through at least 3 neighborhoods by then, so. Because the neighborhoods would be July 19th, May 19th, June 23rd, July 21st, and the last one's August 25th. So I think by July, be a good time to get in front, try to target that.
Sure. I think that works. They have a cool drawing. Wow, I didn't even see the master plan for Reynolds Landing. Here's Breckenridge Brewery. May 15th is their first opening, their soft opening, so put that on your calendar. 7 a.m. I don't know the time. But just to show you, so let's see what the feedback was. The plan? No, it's just a master plan.
Is that taking over those little houses that the city owns back there behind the brewery?
Yeah, we have
Where the parking is?
the Saperchi properties, yeah, the city has a lease with that. So I think they're going to stay for a while. It doesn't, yeah.
Does anything that happens in Reynolds Landing come to us for any reason, or no, that's all South Suburban District?
Yeah, it's really South Suburban, and then they have a working group that includes people from the county and some residents and...
I mean, it's just really, but it does help support some of the goals and policies of our plan and outdoor space, blah, blah, blah. So it's in alignment, but
By
yeah.
plan, absolutely. Putting it into place. So, yeah, here's the word cloud from the Reynolds Landing. Of course, river is very big. Brewery is next, so that's always.
Access.
People need some additional.
I need access to the brewery from the river, or maybe the other way around. I need access to the river to the brewery.
There's bars too, of course, it's littler.
All right.
Fun.
Okay, so just to summarize, for the neighborhood plans, we have it on Open Littleton. We're going to bring it to the Neighborhood Congress, and we'll introduce it at the neighborhood meetings to say, okay, remember, we have plans out there. Doesn't make sense for Trailmark, but for the other ones, we can say they're out there. We've updated them. Here are the things that we've changed. So that gives us opportunity to get more feedback. The other question that I think Dennis had brought up last time on this for Open Littleton was, and you just said it too, should we put some leading comments or questions to solicit more
New,
feedback?
fresh ideas.
Yeah. And you've done that for some of the other topics here where you actually put a question out there.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a recommendation of what those questions might look like? Did Dennis draft any recommendations on that?
He gave me the copy of the questions early on when we were talking about the neighborhood plans that he presented out to you. And I looked over them. There were like 6 different questions. They're pretty general. I think somebody always identifies with development in their neighborhood. So we could look at something along that lines, or.
But I think what we have to look at here is, coming back to RC's point of what are they answering? What do we want them to respond to? So those are the questions we have to craft. Are you okay? Recognize that we have removed the policy number blah, blah, blah that says this for the reason that this is outdated or is no longer, feasible for whatever reason. Do you agree with that removal of that policy? Yes? No? Do you wish to comment? So at least we get a yes or no on what we've changed, and then hopefully we get some additional comment and color behind that. So maybe it's just go through what we took out and say, we took this out, we added this, we merged these, and that's 4, 5, 6 questions.
Yeah, really, a lot of times the question is just to compel people to read the plan.
Right.
So.
And then we can at least get a yes or no. Say, yep, you did the right thing. You should have taken this out, or nope. I need it back in, and why? Here's why.
Yeah, I also think, the red line version, and I understand why we did that, to show people what we are fixing, but it's also pretty confusing. I know I always have to shut it off on a ordinance or something.
Reading it. Mm-hmm.
So you kind of get the whole picture then.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Okie dokie.
Good.
Talk more about it on May 11th. So I wanted to give you a bit of an update on some of the things we're doing to amend the zoning code. And I wanted to show you this. We've had this out for a while, and really we've got quite a few input. We've got 136 visitors, 47 responses to our question about accessory dwelling units. And you weren't here, Brian, but we talked about amending the code to allow that secondary dwelling unit, principally in a single-family neighborhood. They're allowed in multifamily neighborhoods, of course, so it'd be a single-family neighborhood. And Mark points out that we actually do allow those, but the city we draw the line at a range, believe it or not. So you cannot have a stove oven in said unit. So this is, if we're going to allow them, then what kind of restrictions would we place on them? So we had a presentation before the planning board, and we listed a number of potential restrictions on them, and then we repeated it with the study session with the city council with VRBOs, which you might be interested in. I don't think council was real enamored with the VRBO idea. That's what I took away from that. But I think there's some real traction for the accessory dwelling units. So this is what we put up there, are basically what those standards might look like, and get people's impression of what's good and what's bad.
A lot of comments, it looks like, on that one.
We did.
47?
When you say the traction's there, that it's already allowed, as you just said a minute ago. What traction's necessary other than allowing an oven, a cooktop? That's about it.
That, I mean, it seems to me, too, that would be safer than making people use like a hot plate or something, which is what they do now. Or they just put it in an oven without your knowledge.
I mean,
A lot of folks just do it, right? And then it's an enforcement issue. So I guess my thinking is that if we are going to go this far, let's go ahead and make an allowed use, but here's an opportunity to make sure the owner perhaps lives on site and maybe get a little bit better handle on it. So these are the questions we asked. Just kind of show you a summary here. So we started out, are you against allowing accessory dwelling units? And we did have a little description with pictures.
did you let people know that it is a allowable use, it's a use by right in the neighborhoods?
Nah.
Okay, well, that's a killer right there.
Well, it doesn't look like it from the comments.
Everyone's agreeing that they should have them. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's in favor of it.
It's a double negative.
overwhelming.
I'm
so
against
it's
allowing
positive.
accessory dwelling
I
units.
know, I had already like four.
I'm against allowing.
Confuse the voter.
Yeah, that was good. We,
Saying, no, I'm not against it, so I am.
Then we
I
asked
am
it again.
for allowing it.
allow ADUs within the primary structure. Again, pretty high,
The
yes.
detached is even higher, 90%.
Allow ADUs as detached accessory structures in the backyard. We got 84% said yes, that's a good idea.
Is the comment below?
Yes. Or
The response is below.
the response is below the question.
Response below the question, okay.
Yeah.
It almost looks like
So in
the
summary,
white is
it
together.
seems like, yeah, you should allow accessory dwelling units. There is a desire to put some limitations on it.
Just one per property?
One per property. No more than one per property. We reinforce that. So we asked in all single-family neighborhoods. Here we got a little bit more, a few no's out of there, but still, I think a high majority of yeses.
How do I read this one? Allow only in low-density
Right.
houses, half acre and larger.
That
So they
basically
would like it in higher
reinforces
density neighborhoods.
the previous question.
So that was some of the discussion with council, right? I think they said, well, maybe not all the zoning districts, because where you allow more units per acre, maybe you've got too many cars on the streets already. Do we really want to add to impacts in those neighborhoods? And perhaps it's better in a low-density neighborhood where you have fewer units, quite frankly. So we wanted
They're
to...
saying no here, though. So they're saying, no, don't allow it only in low-density neighborhoods.
Correct.
Right,
Allow it everywhere, or
right.
that would,
And we broke it out to medium-density neighborhoods. Now, I mean, that was a tough one. Does somebody know what a half acre is and what's 5,000 square feet? I kind of looked at the zoning districts kind of in the middle of our code.
R3 is even larger than 5,000 square feet.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's, the reduction in open space is interesting, too.
That was
Saying
another thing
25%.
that some cities did to promote ADUs is allow higher coverage requirements, so you could cover more of the lot, so less open space. So we kind of wanted to get an idea of that. So I guess the majority said a 25% reduction in that amount of open space perhaps is acceptable, but
You didn't allow them to say less than 10, though. Although more than 75% said 25 to 50. It's pretty good.
some cities said there should be a size limit on an accessory dwelling unit to make sure it's secondary to the main house. They're usually in the range of 300 to 800 square feet. So, three-quarters or two-thirds thought that that's a good idea. This one was probably confusing. An ADU is shorter than the main house. So can you add on to the side of your house for an accessory dwelling unit and in essence stretch out the front facade of the building? I guess there really wasn't a concern with that. Allow ADUs on the second floor. Yeah, people were definitely supported that. Require larger rear and side setbacks for detached ADUs. And I think this was something Mark talked about. I think, is it Denver, that if you have a porch on the second floor, it pushes the unit more into the lot?
Yeah, it's not allowed in certain areas of the lot. It's, or you have to move the whole accessory dwelling unit to the north side, for instance. You can't have it on the south end.
Yeah.
So you're not shading your neighbor.
Staring at your neighbor.
We all, some of us understand that ADUs are currently allowed as a use by right. Has there ever been, have you given to this group, I don't think so, what are the requirements currently? And then all these people answering these questions, do they understand that it's a use by right other than the oven?
Well, what's that going to change? There's not even any contradictory answers here. They're all overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, just be nice to let them know what's allowed up front. But what are there standards to size and setbacks currently in Littleton's code for accessory dwelling units?
Well, for detached accessory units there are, and there's setbacks for those. I can't quote what they're for.
What about second floor? Does it get that deep?
You have to have the same exiting. It would really be another bedroom with potentially a kitchen counter, sometimes what they look like.
The answer to this last one?
Sure if it's the last one.
Parking was an issue. So we asked about parking. Should we require additional parking spaces? Again, 66 to 33 said no. Property where the ADU is located must be occupied by the owner. That was one of the things we talked about. So could you have an accessory dwelling unit and then rent out the main house?
You can today.
Do you know who's answering these questions? I mean, I find it hard to believe that 89% of people wouldn't want a public hearing, especially given the majority support for or against the urban renewal. Were you answering all these questions?
So can you show who's responding on the map?
I can show you.
So do you feel like you've gotten
But it
enough?
shows you a real dichotomy, right?
You can
It's all
leave now.
clustered around Barry.
So Glenn, do you feel that you've gotten enough input here that you can begin to draft a change in policy?
I think this gives us good direction to draft an ordinance,
Yep.
of which you'd be the first to see, but and then we also asked about units to be sold. And they said no. Reduce permit fees. Require yearly inspections. This came out of council, actually. Should fire go in and inspect accessory dwelling units?
Annually?
Yeah, overwhelming.
So exactly how you've asked these questions, that they're yes and no, that makes it so much easier for people to engage. And I think that's one of the ways we could do it for the neighborhood plans. Yeah.
For the most part,
Let's be fast.
you required people to answer every question, though, right? Or did you not?
Not necessarily. You can see where we have fewer responses on some questions.
Oh, okay. But okay, yeah. I guess I was thinking, I was just adding up the percentages to 100, but you were just taking the number of responses and dividing them by.
Yeah. So in District 1, we had only 4 responses. Had a lot in District 2, which includes the Northeast neighborhood. 8 in District 3, and District 4, 6.
How many trail mark?
Let's see.
It's not on the map.
It looks like maybe
That is,
6.
It's District 4, that Loop 2 and District
that's right, it's still District 4. Good point, thank you, Andrew. Clarifying that.
There was, all those people live in a lake.
You could have just kept quiet about
Yeah, that's too bad. I really felt pretty excited.
that. Well, there could be one from inside.
Okay, so that's accessory dwelling units. We also showed you the R5, the changes to the R5. We've sent out notices to all owners of the R5 district, inviting them to come next Monday to talk about it if they have issues. We've received a few responses, both for and against. The 4 ones are kind of what we talked about, a chance for ownership in the downtown. Against had to do with the scale of the neighborhood, and I think principally the downtown neighborhood. So are we making it easier to kind of create more of a McMansion in the R5 district, or a much larger structure than what historically has been there?
Which can be there today, but just in a different form. It could be apartments.
Right, right.
43 units per acre.
Right, as we talked about, you're allowed 43 units per acre in that area. They just have to be rental, basically. So this allows an opportunity for ownership on a smaller lot. So,
And so I did see that posted to next door today. So that, when's that meeting? It's May 4th.
that's next Monday,
Next Monday.
here,
May 4th.
7 o'clock, May 4th,
What's the meeting?
to talk about the R5. So
Our group or council or?
if you'd like to come, please come.
Okay.
But you're not required. Mm-hmm.
So we would just sit in the audience and just kind of hear what people's concerns and thoughts are, right?
Right, right. I'm not quite sure how we're going to set it up. Maybe more as a open house. People come in and ask questions and raise their concerns and talk to us about it. More one-on-one than making a formal hearing where we're presenting it and people are getting up and speaking in the mic. We'll try and keep it semi-informal.
Will there be refreshments?
That's a good question. Actually, we should have refreshments.
I think it's so important for them to understand what the zoning allows now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it comes
That's
back
really
to,
important.
and I don't know that I want to necessarily call it marketing, but it's just about making them aware of here's what the facts are now that can be created in your neighborhood today, and maybe luckily or not, depending on what side of the street you're on, it has happened and you don't like what's there, you don't like the apartments, or it hasn't happened because you still do have the small little house, but it doesn't mean that small little house can't turn into a 43-unit apartment potentially.
Without any going to the planning board? Just goes straight
Right.
to the building
I
department and
think
get
it's
your
just
permit?
important that they know
It needs
what
code.
is already allowed before they place judgment on what is being proposed.
It cuts off some of the arguments that really aren't arguments, like cutting off somebody's view or
That will
creating a
happen
shadow. 'cause
anyway.
It can happen anyway, yeah.
Well, again, I think we talked about if you looked at a certain area and said the density as it's currently zoned would allow for 3,000 units in this area, but with this proposed change, it would actually take it from 3,000 down to 1,000. I mean, that's effectively what
Can happen.
could occur.
You're right. If we allow development at a lower density that's marketable
Right.
today, then, right, that takes out the opportunity of higher density tomorrow. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, as it's currently zoned at 43 units per acre, it would allow this many units to be built as it's currently zoned.
Mm-hmm.
But with this proposed change, the density actually goes down. That's the reality of it.
But at the end of the day, you're not trying to skew their opinion in one way or another, right? I mean, you have to remain objective. So it's just about, presenting it as facts.
Right.
And that's one presentation of facts, but
Let them draw their own conclusions.
them draw their own conclusions.
And I think I mentioned at the planning board meeting, if you do want to protect, if a group of owners want to protect their neighborhood and keep the scale the way it is, we have vehicles of doing that.
That's great information to share, yeah.
So if it's something that, a group of owners does want to put restrictions on themselves, we do it through either a plan development overlay, or we create a special district, or if it's historic, then we use a historic district. So any changes go before HPB.
That's great information to share, for those.
Yeah, we'll think about how to kind of present that without, I think people always perceive what's there. They don't know what could be. So any way we can kind of get that across. A lot of times then we'll get criticized, well, you're trying to scare us, or it's a scare tactic, or something along that lines. But we can do it in a non-scary way.
Right.
We'll do that.
So that would happen next Monday. And then again, this is all just for the purpose of gathering information to begin to craft an ordinance. Okay.
Then we'll
Or change.
be
It would be a
before-
change. It wouldn't be an ordinance. It would be a change.
It would be a change to the R5 district.
R5 district.
To change the minimum lot size. And the other thing we talked about is right now we have a provision where if you're in the R5 district and there's a CA or there's a commercial district next to you, you can actually put a parking lot in the R5. It hasn't been used that we're aware of, and it is kind of a threat to the R5 neighborhood. So one of the things we're proposing is taking that out of the code. And that comes straight from our downtown neighborhood plan. That was a recommendation that came out of there. So we haven't heard from any property. Potentially, we could hear from a property owner that because you're basically taking away a use from their allowed uses.
You talked about the overlay at special districts that could be formed. Briefly, what is the steps? Do they have to get 50 or 70% of the neighbors to sign up and go through a formal hearing process with the board and council? How does it work?
Well, for a plan development overlay, I would say we'd have to have every owner would have to sign on. And we bring it to the planning board.
That's a high threshold, every owner. Okay.
Well, yeah, and you could draw it smaller than a whole neighborhood. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 50 homes.
It could be a block.
Sure.
Same thing for historical neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's like the Littleton district is 2 blocks long, 2 blocks wide. They all had to agree to it. That was a different vehicle, so that had to have historic background and meet all the boxes on that. But a PDO then just goes to the planning board. The planning board approves it, then it's done. And what you do with a PDO is you can limit uses, you can put greater setbacks in place, height restrictions, all those sorts of things.
What happens to the owners that we're counting on doing 34 units per acre and they've got 3 continuous lots in R5 and they're getting ready to do it? They consider it to be a takings and sue the pants off the city, or what happens next?
I think that's what would happen. That's why we would probably ask for all the owners to agree versus us go in and zone it. Yeah, because that's
Mark,
tough.
you're saying if there was one right in the middle, there were 10 that wanted to do, 10 that were trying to do this, but there was one in the middle that said, I don't want to do that?
Then they couldn't,
Then I don't think you have
couldn't do it.
100% of the vote.
Yeah, you don't have it, yeah. Again, it's a really high threshold. It'd be tough to get the overlay.
But even if they do ask to do an overlay, the planning board still has to approve it that it makes sense in the neighborhood and
Right.
according
You have to make there's certain set findings you would have to find that it's it basically implements a comprehensive plan. Yeah. If you deny it, they could appeal that to city council, basically. One of the final thing I want to mention is I think we sent to you, and I put a copy, the City Builder Forum. And I know it's a couple hours, and it's all the way in Boulder, and so that's pretty painful. But we do have Dina Swetlick actually is on contract with the city, is one of our urban design consultants. She's one of the presenters, so she agreed to come out here on May 11th and give you personally her presentation on density. So that's what we have scheduled for May 11th. And then if we want to talk about neighborhood plans and questions and leading questions, we can do that. But anything else for May 11th that would be
Anything
interesting?
coming up?
We have a lot of things coming up.
Anything that we'll see on May 11th? Or you've heard
doesn't
that
look
it's going to
like
be a
it.
study session?
No.
Okay.
Back to the meeting next Monday, I got an email on that today, and the time was not on the email. And when I click through to the Littleton gov.org or whatever site, the time's not on there either. And then I clicked out to the calendar, and it's not on the calendar at all. So
I just saw it on the calendar. So from next door, you said?
that was earlier today that I looked at the calendar. No, let me just go back to the mail. Yeah, it was next door trail mark. It says May 4th, but it doesn't say when, and then it has a link. And when I click the link, it has several paragraphs, but it still just says May 4th at the bottom and no time. And then when I went to, at the bottom, you can click on city meeting calendar, and it's not on the calendar. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong month. I was looking at the wrong month. No, you're right, it is. So, yeah, so it's on the calendar. I was looking at April 4th, because that's what came up.
But the email didn't mention a time.
The email and the blurb here
Okay.
doesn't have the time. It says May 4th down here, but it doesn't
Okay.
say 7th.
All right.
But yeah, it's on the calendar. I guess I was looking in the wrong spot.
All right, good. Anything else?
So, Glenn, you said you were going to share with us
Oh,
the
right.
a
Yeah.
presentation you had done?
That's right. So as I mentioned, we every year, actually Denise Stevens, our Economic Development Director, brings in a number of property owners, developers, not only within Littleton, but outside Littleton as well, to kind of tell them a little bit about what's going on. So let me just open that up, and I'll go over some of the projects we have going on in community development. So just let you guys know, I mean, from a permit activity, it's been a pretty crazy year last year. So we really tripled the number of the valuation of permits. So what you're seeing here is in brown, the value of residential permits, and then in red, the value of commercial permits that we've issued in these various years. So you can see us kind of coming out of the recession, and then boom, in 2014, we really had a banner year. So some of those projects are things like Breckenridge Brewery, certainly raised the value. A lot of the residential, yes, there might be a multifamily project in there, but a lot of that really is folks doing improvements to their homes. And I do have a cluster map. It's not shown here, but kind of shows a heat map of where people are investing in the neighborhoods. And it's the core of our community. So people, money is loosening up, and people are investing in their neighborhood, and they're staying put in Littleton.
So is Littleton Village captured in 2014, or will it be 2015?
It will be 2015, because we actually have not issued any permits yet. But it should be shortly. We'll be issuing permits in Littleton Village. So this only shows the first quarter, basically, of 2015. So this is revenue to the city. This is inspection levels. Our staff looking at development plans and approving them. So it's been very busy. One of the things, I don't know if you utilize, but we have a project activity map that shows everything proposed and what's under construction. This is actually a year ago, and I just wanted to show the difference what a year makes. The blue means it's proposed, basically, or it's in review. The green means now it's under construction. And I think what's telling with this map is really the development is on the perimeter of the community. I think that reinforces the fact that we're not messing with neighborhoods. That's not where the development's happening. It's really happening on the perimeter, and we're protecting the core of the community. But this also shows all those projects that are now under construction.
Is there a date these permits end if the property owner doesn't do anything? Thinking of some of the coming soon signs I'm seeing around town. Be removed.
Right. Yeah, Circle K. Yeah.
Things are afoot there.
You're right. We leave them up with if their case is still pending. But you raise a good point. If we don't see anything in the very near future, should it stay up there? And there's probably two. There's Circle K. The other one is the Villages at Bellevue, which is up at
50-50 Bellevue.
It's Bellevue and Federal. Right. So they submitted a case and then never went further. I believe, the shopping center that now has a fence around it, it's been there for a long time. So I don't know if we should leave it up as a pending case. We'll just put it back up if they come back and actually present something to you. I think Lyft still talks about it once in a while.
You think?
That project. So there is a lift.
It's scheduled for May 7th. Villages of Bellevue is supposed to present a lift on May 7th.
Oh,
Next Thursday.
okay. Not sure what they're presenting, but yeah.
If you want me to tell you that they're encouraging them to come to you first for rezoning. Once they go to lift, they begin paying money to lift. So it's better for them to come to you for rezoning first and then go to lift for a public handout. But that's the plan right now.
That's the way it should happen. Yeah, good. We talked about infill residential, which is exactly the R5 issue. You did make the amendments to the CA district. I think this unit is actually in a CA district on Sycamore Street. Here's one that's actually under construction now. It was changed from a triplex to a duplex, so this is a little outdated. But again, in the downtown area, I think this one is actually in the R5. So, in fact, this owner came and spoke to you when we presented the R5. Mm-hmm. It's Mike Peterson. Here's another one that's proposed. I believe this is on Sycamore as well, a side elevation and a front elevation. View House Restaurant, you're probably not familiar with that. They're located, they'll be located on the west end of Main Street. Here's a picture circa 1934, I think. So they're on the right-hand side where it says Roth Burns Motor Company. That's the building. And here's an elevation of what it's to look like. So they went in and they took all the stucco, I believe, off the facade about 2 years ago. We're trying to lease it out, and then they ultimately sold to the View House. And they're putting a second floor on it for the view, basically, of the View House.
Is it both pieces? There's, two basic buildings?
It is two basic buildings.
They have both of them?
They own them both. They're only improving the west 6,000 square feet.
Okay, so the east side will be still for lease?
The east, they're going to fix up and lease out. They hope for another restaurant, basically.
Would that have a second floor put on it along with this one?
No, I don't believe so. I guess potentially they could, but they really have no plans as of now.
There was a sign expressing an outdoor patio. Are they meaning the roof, or are they also going to do like a beer garden?
Right. In the back, there'll be a beer garden. So what they are doing is removing an addition that was on the back to create room for that beer garden. And it also help them with their parking situation, so they are not adding square feet. They took some away, they put some on the roof. And in the back is a beer garden with a volleyball court, so kind of a nice outdoor area as well. They're in plan review right now, so hopefully we'll see construction start before too long.
Will that come in front of us?
No.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's interesting. You say they took space away, and they took space away on the main level, added up above. But they're putting in a beer garden. Doesn't beer garden mean more people would kick in more parking?
It's not a structure. It's not square feet.
I'll come in Wheat Ridge, I have to add a lot of...
Really? For an outside patio, you have to add parking?
Well, it counts as, it's a body count, you get 75 people on this patio, and they want to know, do your bathroom facility still up to snuff?
Oh, yeah.
Those kind of things.
I think that still kicks in
We're
as
okay
far
with
as parking.
But
Okay.
it's interesting that you can, but it's not building, but you're adding people.
Yeah.
It doesn't increase the parking.
It does not increase the
Okay.
parking.
The strange Littleton zoning code.
I think that's probably typical of most zoning codes.
Probably.
Once you create floor area, which is covered space, here's another view. So typical architects, they stick a tree right in the front of everything, right?
Hide it with vines.
Sorry. But this would be a view looking east.
Do you know, are they removing
No.
that curved?
Right, that barrel roof will stay. Yeah, in fact, you can even see it in this elevation, barely. So this was something debated by historic preservation. They actually wanted to show it as floating above that barrel vault that's over the building. So you could see it, and they were going to light it, so you had an idea of this is old, this is new. I think ultimately the board said, no, let's cover it up. So this might be an early elevation, and you'll basically see steel here that will cover up the barrel. But the barrel will be there. When you're inside, you'll see it. The skylights will still be there. It won't get any light because it'll be covered up by a deck. Then designs by sundown. So we talk about Breckenridge Brewery quite a bit, but as you remember, directly south was Designs by Sundown, and they're moving their corporate headquarters there. They've submitted plans to us for their office building, and I think kind of a storage barn. It's about a $1.6 million improvement. This is some of the building elevations. I think it absolutely embodies the design guidelines of the South Platte River.
What we call rural vernacular?
Rural vernacular.
Or
Very good.
Vernacular, take your pick.
Yeah, the straw hat and the
Leading the oxen.
fishbowl over the shoulder. Yeah, yes, you've created images for us on that. Also Alpine Buick. So if you go down the street, down Santa Fe and take County Line, the multifamily project that the planning board approved, recommended approval of that rezoning. That's well under construction, Littleton Commons. But then the idea was we would reinvigorate the commercial on the other side of Erickson Boulevard, and that's kind of what's happened. So we have Alpine Buick that's proposed a dealership on the very west end of that site. I think it's about, it's 40,000 square feet. Peyton Manning's favorite vehicle will be sold out of there. The property also had a kind of a couple of unusual deed restrictions. One was no car dealerships, the other was no hospitals, which actually, so you can kind of figure out why, I think. I think they were put in place in the 70s on the property when we annexed it, and I think the feeling was we didn't want competition to Broadway Road, I believe, which is where our hospital and our car dealers were at the time. But since then, we've lost a hospital to Highlands Ranch, and we've lost a lot of car dealers. So this owner was able to bring forward to City Council a mechanism to remove that deed restriction. So that's kind of opened up development of the site.
Where's the site again? I'm sorry.
Let me go back. So it's way on the east end,
Oh, county line, yeah.
west end, right up against 470.
And then to the east is the residential units, is that?
Right,
Okay.
right. You got the railroad on one side, yeah. And then directly adjacent to that is the Courtyard Marriott. So we have a hotel that's actually very close to issuing permits, has about 125 units, 68,000 square feet, something like that. Has actually a great meeting room, so if we want to do some kind of host planning board meeting, they have room for about, well, let's see, it's, I think it'll hold about 65 to 70 people.
It's right next to the other hotel that's down there. Oh, the other hotel it's further west.
Yeah, it's north. So you have the Hampton Inn that's up on the hill on the other side of County Line. This is, so 470 is on the bottom of the site, and Erickson, which divides the apartments from the retail.
So the Buick dealer is to the left here in
The
this.
Buick dealer's right.
Okay.
That's the dealership, the hotel, and then the apartments.
Right. And then what's left over is there's 3 retail sites directly to the north of this project drive that's shown here, which we don't have any tenants for yet. So.
Big pad, big box retail, or?
No, they're only 3-acre pads, so you're not going to get a really big box on those. Somebody could combine them, but again, it's only a 3-acre site, so.
Convenience store type of stuff.
Could be a fast food, could be a restaurant, what you normally see around a hotel.
Well, there was a great fear that commercial wouldn't go with the remaining space that we kept as commercial, but it's going to fill up. Very interesting.
Well, I guess you could argue, did the multifamily cause that, or is it just the market? I would say that just the investment in the multifamily has got enough people, and you got an owner who has really been aggressively marketing the site, and we're kind of in good economic time. So I think it's hard to say it's one or the other. The other thing he did, which was fairly controversial, is he kind of cleared the site, and if you've ever been to the site, it really was an idyllic, a lot of trees, a little pond. It was kind of a beautiful site, and he said, well, a developer can't see it. They have to be able to see it. So we did some preliminary grading, and anyhow, it's brought forward.
How high is this Marriott going to be?
It's 4 stories, so 50 feet, 55 feet.
How tall is the other?
It's about the same. Yep. In South Park, Red Rocks Credit Union. This is one of the few remaining vacant spaces. 7 million corporate headquarters going in there. This is well under construction. They're digging the footings now. It's kind of a beautiful building too. Oftentimes we look past Littleton Adventist Hospital, but they're putting in 10 million with up to 35 million going into there. They're adding, about 50,000 square feet to their operating room and imaging. They're adding a radiation and oncology center, which is really below grade. It's kind of a bunker, lead-lined bunker down there.
The walls are 10 feet thick, concrete.
10 feet thick. Wow. And they have an accelerator of some sort in there, so pretty space age. Then you guys know this project, this Littleton Village. Seen all the preliminary plats now. So this is up to date for that east half. Richmond American's doing 68 townhouses, 45 single family, and then Century Community is doing 70 townhouses, 44 patio homes, and then their Cityscape project, which are those high-density detached units, 56 of those. So 283, and if you remember the zoning, probably don't, but 400 units were allowed in this east half. So kind of shows where the market was a little bit less density.
Any updates on the retail on Littleton Village and commercial?
We're working with the developer on that. I don't have anything any details I can give you. But I think that was my biggest concern. Would we get 250,000 square feet in this location with streets of South Glen and a lot of competing centers? And I can tell you it looks pretty good. We'll be pretty close to that, and some interesting uses. Here's what some of the units, I think you've all seen these. Here's the cityscape, the higher density detached units. We're also working with a apartment developer called Amley that is developing one of the multifamily sites in Littleton Village and a mixed-use site. So this is kind of the view off the main street that shows where there would be retail space on the first floor and units above. It's about 350 units. I'm not sure what the square footage is of the retail, but this is the mixed use, or a portion of the mixed use area that's in the center.
Grand total of residential units is in the 500 something or allowed?
900.
Or 900, okay.
Right. I think it was up to 400 in the east half. Right. So total of 900 would be the max.
I think you mentioned the projection is around 750 or something with a...
Yeah, as far as what we've seen so far, I mean, things could change, but we'll be south of that 900 number. There's a couple of elevations. This would be catty corner from that main entrance. So this would be Dry Creek and one of the main entrance. The view, this is kind of this would be like the leasing area, the gym area, more of the amenity area for the project. You know about this. We adopt a comprehensive plan. This is what I showed you as far as long-range planning projects that we have in the works that you'll be seeing. Here's our schedule for zoning ordinance review committee. So that consultant has been given kind of a limited task. First to write an assessment, and Mark's reviewed that. And then draft the use regulations, which they are behind on. And then also how the code should be restructured. And then also write new definitions for us, which our code sorely needs. And then we're working on these, the accessory dwelling units. We've talked about that. I have not shown you this picture on the tattoos.
Thank you.
We didn't want to show that to you as we brought this forward, but I don't condone tattooing babies. And then one final thing, you've walked by it, but we've got the one-stop shop. Where it's a little different. We brought kind of some senior staff members. So we have, you might know, Ernie Rose. It's one of our senior planners. Redescribed his job description, and now he's sitting up here helping people with development projects. And we're getting to the point where he can issue permits for a number of permits right over the counter. So we're getting to that point. So if you have a deck, you're doing a garage, you're doing an accessory dwelling unit, hopefully, then potentially that can be reviewed and issued a permit right over the counter. We also have, this is kind of interesting, but we have Bert in engineer. He's a senior engineer, so he can help with street cut permits, grading plans, that sort of thing. So we have Bert and Ernie working at the front counter. And hopefully the idea is we can get some of these little projects out the door, and the more major projects then doesn't bog down the plan reviewers. So. Yeah, I've gotten some good feedback, and we're still a little bit in the learning curve, so those guys are still learning. We've got a building inspector who comes in, kind of watches over their shoulder, but yeah, we've gotten some good feedback on it, and it'll just get better. That's it.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
That's great.
Good.
Going great guns here, aren't we? Man.
A lot of stuff going on.
That image is disturbing.
Yes, sorry. close it down.
Where did you say that was from?
It's in Russia. I forget the name of the town, but as you can see, it's an industrial town.
Put that up at our table for the meet and greets.
This would be great.
That'll get
How do you like this vision of Littleton
That's
here?
our vision.
Or trail mark?
Yeah, the old decoy vision, that'll always get them come in.
Okay, anybody have any other comments, questions, anything you want to bring up? Nope. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Done.